Chapter 1: The Kidnapping. The day started like any other, with the endless paperwork that comes with being a captain in the United Earth Defense Fleet. I was deep into a report on recent skirmishes with the Garaz when my intercom buzzed urgently. It was my communications officer, Lieutenant Harris. "Captain O'Reilly, sir, we're receiving a distress signal from the lunar colony," Harris announced, his voice tight with anxiety. I felt a chill run down my spine but maintained my composure. "Patch it through to my console," I ordered. The screen flickered to life, revealing a panicked face that I recognized instantly, Principal Morgan from my son's school. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained to hear her over the static. "Captain O'Reilly, this is Principal Morgan. The Garaz, they've attacked the colony. They took the children, they took Tim." Her voice was laced with terror and despair. The world seemed to narrow to that single moment. My son, Tim, had been kidnapped. I struggled to keep my voice steady. "How long ago did this happen?" "Just minutes ago," she replied, her voice breaking. "They left a message, a demand for Earth's surrender." I slammed my fist on the desk. "I'm on my way." "Hang tight, Morgan." Turning to Harris, I barked, "Prepare my shuttle for immediate departure. I'm going to the lunar colony." The trip to the moon felt like an eternity. My mind raced with every possible scenario, each more dire than the last. When we finally touched down, the sight that greeted me was a nightmare. The colony lay in ruins, smoke rising from demolished buildings, and the air filled with the acrid scent of burning metal. I found Principal Morgan amidst the chaos, directing emergency services. Her face was pale, eyes red from crying. "Captain, this way," she said, leading me to the school. The school was a shambles. Walls were blasted apart, and the once vibrant classrooms were now desolate. Morgan led me to her office, where a holographic transmitter stood ominously on her desk. "They left this," she said, her voice trembling. I activated the device, and a towering Garaz commander materialized before me, his reptilian eyes cold and calculating. "Humans," he hissed. "We have your children. Surrender your planet to the Garaz Empire, or they will perish." The transmission ended, leaving a suffocating silence in its wake. Rage boiled within me, but I knew I had to stay focused. I clenched my fists, feeling the weight of every father's fear and fury. "I will not surrender," I vowed, my voice low but resolute. "I will get my son back, and I will make them pay." Principal Morgan placed a hand on my arm. "What will you do, Captain?" I met her eyes, finding strength in her unwavering faith. "I'm going to assemble a team and rescue our children. The Garaz will regret underestimating us." Back on the ship, I gathered my most trusted officers in the war room. Lieutenant Harris, Sergeant Ramirez, and Specialist Kwan, they were the best of the best, and I needed their skills now more than ever. "We're going to infiltrate the Garaz Star Cruiser," I began, outlining the mission. "This is a high-risk operation, but failure is not an option. Our children are counting on us." Ramirez, ever the stalwart soldier, nodded grimly. "We'll bring them home, Captain." Harris looked determined, his usual light-hearted demeanor replaced by a steely resolve. "Let's make those bastards pay." Specialist Kwan, our tech genius, was already devising a plan. "I'll ensure we have the stealth tech to get past their defenses. We'll hit them where it hurts." As we prepared for the mission, I found a moment of solitude. I took out the small photo of Tim I kept in my jacket, his bright eyes an infectious smile. I whispered a silent promise to him. "Hang in there, Tim. Dad's coming." With my elite team ready, we boarded the stealth shuttle. The journey to the Garaz Star Cruiser was tense, each of us lost in our thoughts. The stakes were higher than any battle we had ever faced. As we approached the cruiser, Harris broke the silence. "Captain, we're within range." Activating stealth mode. The shuttle shimmered and disappeared from sight. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Let's do this." The Garaz would learn that there is no force more powerful than a parent's love. Chapter 2: The Assault Begins. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins as the sleek, black silhouette of our stealth ship glided silently through the void of space. The Garess Star Cruiser loomed ahead like a menacing behemoth, its exterior bristling with weaponry and scanning arrays. We were cloaked, invisible to their sensors, but my heart pounded in my chest, a drumbeat of urgency and fear for my son, Tim. "Captain, we're approaching the outer defenses," whispered Lieutenant Harris, her voice steady despite the tension. "All systems are green. Ready on your command." I nodded, though she couldn't see it. "Proceed with breach protocol. Keep it quiet, people." The crew, a hand-picked team of the best soldiers the United Earth Defense Fleet had to offer, moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Our stealth tech allowed us to bypass the outer sentries, but the real challenge lay ahead. As we docked with a barely noticeable thud against the cruiser's hull, we donned our helmets, sealing our suits for what was to come. "Engage magnetic boots," I ordered softly. The squad complied, and we moved as one, traversing the exterior of the ship until we reached an airlock. Sergeant Daniels, our tech specialist, got to work on the lock with deft fingers. "Almost there, and, got it," he said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice as the lock disengaged. The door slid open silently, and we slipped inside, weapons at the ready. The corridor was dimly lit, the shadows playing tricks with our vision. We advanced cautiously, each step measured, each breath controlled. The Garess were formidable foes, but we had the element of surprise on our side. "Contact," murmured Private Lee, signaling a pair of Garess sentries up ahead. They were tall and reptilian, their scales shimmering in the low light. Before they could react, a synchronized volley of silenced shots took them down. "Nice and clean," said Sergeant Reyes, giving Lee a nod. "Keep moving," I urged. "We need to find the holding cells." Navigating the labyrinthine passages of the cruiser was no small feat. We encountered more sentries, each time dealing with them swiftly and silently. The tension was palpable, a taut wire ready to snap at any moment. Then, we found it, a heavily guarded door that could only lead to the holding cells. Daniels worked his magic again, and the door slid open to reveal a room filled with terrified children. My heart wrenched as my eyes fell upon Tim, huddled with a group of his classmates. "Dad!" Tim's voice was a mixture of relief and disbelief. "Tim! We're getting you out of here," I said, rushing to his side. The other children looked up with hope as my team spread out, reassuring and organizing them for evacuation. Just as we were about to move, the alarm blared. Red lights flashed, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. The Garess reinforcements were coming. "Prepare for engagement." I shouted over the din, raising my weapon. The first wave of Garess soldiers crashed into the room, and chaos erupted. Blaster fire lit up the space, screams and roars mingling in a cacophony of battle. "Hold the line!" Sergeant Reyes barked, taking down 2 Garess with precise shots. "Cover the kids!" Lieutenant Harris yelled, her rifle spitting fire at the advancing enemies. I stayed close to Tim, my weapon never missing a beat. The Garess were relentless, their numbers overwhelming, but we fought with the ferocity of those who had everything to lose. "Captain, we're being overrun!" Daniel shouted, his voice strained. "Fall back to the extraction point," I commanded. "Move, move, move." We formed a protective ring around the children, pushing back through the corridors we had entered. The Garess pursued us, but our superior combat skills and unyielding resolve kept them at bay. "Almost there," Private Lee called out, blasting a Garess soldier who had gotten too close. Finally, we reached the airlock, sealing it behind us as we made our escape. The children were safe, but the battle had only just begun. As we prepared to disengage from the cruiser, I knew this was just the first step. The Garess would not relent, and neither would I. For Tim, for humanity, I would lead us to victory, no matter the cost. Chapter 3, Narrow Escape. The tension in the air was palpable as we made our way back through the labyrinthine corridors of the Garess Star Cruiser. The children, including my son Tim, huddled close, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. Each step we took was fraught with danger, every corner a potential ambush. My heart pounded in my chest, but I kept my focus sharp. Failure was not an option. "Stay close, everyone," I whispered, glancing back at the children and my team. "We're almost there." Tim tugged at my sleeve. "Dad, I heard something when I was in the cell," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. "The guards were talking about their homeworld's defense systems. I think I remember some details." My eyes widened. "What did you hear, Tim?" He took a deep breath. "They mentioned something about a series of automated defense satellites and a weak point in their orbital shield. If we hit it just right, we could disable their entire defense network." I nodded, my mind racing. "Good job, son. That information could turn the tide of this war." Suddenly, alarms blared, echoing through the metallic halls. Red lights flashed ominously. The Garass had discovered our presence. "Get ready for a fight," I shouted to my team, drawing my plasma rifle. Garass reinforcements poured into the corridor, their reptilian eyes gleaming with malice. The air filled with the deafening sounds of energy weapons and the acrid smell of burnt metal. We fought with everything we had, our superior combat training giving us the edge, but the Garass were relentless. "Cover the children," I yelled, taking down 2 Garass soldiers with precision shots. "We can't let them get hurt." My team formed a protective ring around the children, firing in all directions. Tim stayed close to me, his small hands clutching my uniform. "Dad, we can't stay here," he cried over the din of battle. He was right. We needed to move, and fast. "Fall back to the shuttle bay," I ordered. "We need to get out of here." We fought our way through the Garass ranks, inch by bloody inch. The shuttle bay was within sight, but the Garass were closing in. I spotted a commandeered Garass shuttle, our ticket out of this nightmare. "Go! Get the children on board," I commanded, covering my team's retreat with a hail of plasma fire. One by one, they rushed onto the shuttle, the children scrambling to safety. As the last of my team boarded, I sprinted towards the shuttle, firing over my shoulder. A Garass soldier lunged at me, but I dispatched him with a swift kick and a point-blank shot. I leapt into the shuttle and slammed the hatch shut. "Strap in. This is going to be rough," I barked, taking the pilot's seat. The shuttle roared to life, and I navigated it through the chaos of enemy fire. The Garass weren't going to let us go easily. Explosions rocked the vessel as we weaved through the Star Cruiser's defenses, but I kept my hands steady on the controls. "Hang on, everyone!" I shouted, pushing the shuttle to its limits. We broke free of the Star Cruiser, hurtling into the void of space. The Garass pursued, but I was determined. "Tim, hold on tight." Tim's voice was a beacon of courage. "You can do it, Dad." With a final, desperate maneuver, I evaded the pursuing fighters and set a course for Earth. The Garass cruiser faded into the distance, and I allowed myself a moment of relief. We had made it. Back on Earth, I wasted no time. Tim's critical information was relayed to the United Earth Defense Fleet's command. In the war room, I laid out the plan for a decisive strike on the Garass homeworld, using the intelligence Tim had provided. Admiral Hayes nodded approvingly. "You've done well, Captain. This could be the breakthrough we need." I looked around at my team, battered but unbroken, and then at Tim. "We fight for our future," I said, my voice steady. "For our children." The human fleet, armed with newfound knowledge and unyielding resolve, set course for the Garass homeworld. As we prepared for the final assault, I knew one thing: we would not rest until humanity was safe, and our victory assured. Chapter 4: The Decisive Battle. The vast expanse of space unfolded before us as the United Earth Defense Fleet approached the Garass homeworld. The anticipation was palpable, every member of the fleet knew what was at stake. As I stood on the bridge of my flagship, the Resolute, I couldn't help but think of Tim and the countless other children who had suffered at the hands of the Garass. This was our moment of reckoning. "Captain, we're approaching the enemy's outer defense perimeter," Lieutenant Harris reported, her voice steady but with an underlying tension. All hands, battle stations, I commanded, my voice echoing through the ship's intercom. This is it, people. Today, we fight not just for our survival, but for the future of humanity. The fleet moved into formation, and within moments, the void of space was illuminated by the flashes of laser fire and the explosions of torpedoes. Our ships engaged the Garaz defenses with a ferocity that matched our resolve. I watched as our fighters weaved through the enemy's ranks, their precision and agility a testament to their training and determination. "Captain, we've identified the Garaz flagship," Major Thompson, my second-in-command, informed me. "It's heavily guarded, but if we can take it out, it could turn the tide of the battle." "Understood, Major," I replied, my eyes narrowing as I studied the tactical display. "Prepare my fighter. I'm leading the assault personally." "Sir, are you sure?" Thompson asked, a hint of concern in his voice. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I said, my resolve unwavering. "This ends today." Minutes later, I was strapped into my fighter, the hum of the engines vibrating through my body. The hangar doors opened, revealing the chaos of the battle outside. I took a deep breath, thinking of Tim, and then launched into the fray. "Alpha Squadron, form up on me," I commanded over the comms. "Our target is the Garaz flagship. Let's show them what the Earth Defense Fleet is made of." My squadron responded with a chorus of affirmatives, and we dove towards the enemy flagship. The Garaz defenses were relentless, but we pressed on, our attacks precise and devastating. The enemy ship loomed larger and larger in my viewport, its sleek, reptilian design a stark contrast to our own vessels. "Captain, we need to hit their main reactor," Lieutenant Carter, my wingman, suggested. "It's the only way to ensure their destruction." "Agreed," I replied. "Alpha Squadron, concentrate your fire on the reactor coordinates I'm sending now." We maneuvered through a hail of enemy fire, our ships darting and weaving to avoid the deadly barrage. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins as we closed in on our target. The reactor was heavily shielded, but we had no choice but to break through. "Fire everything you've got," I shouted, my voice filled with determination. The squadron unleashed a torrent of missiles and laser fire, the combined force of our attack overwhelming the reactor's shields. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, and then the reactor exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave rocked my fighter, but I held steady, watching as the Garaz flagship was consumed by a spectacular explosion. "Direct hit!" Carter exclaimed, his voice filled with triumph. "Outstanding work, Alpha Squadron," I said, my voice filled with pride. "Now, let's finish this fight." With the flagship destroyed, the tide of the battle shifted in our favor. The Garaz forces, now disorganized and demoralized, began to fall back. Our fleet pressed the advantage, picking off the remaining enemy ships one by one. "Captain O'Reilly, ground forces are ready to deploy," Major Thompson reported over the comms. "Awaiting your orders." "Deploy the ground forces," I commanded. "We're taking the fight to the surface." As I piloted my fighter towards the planet's surface, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of anticipation and dread. The Garaz homeworld was an inhospitable place, with harsh landscapes and fierce resistance expected. But I knew that this was our only chance to end the threat once and for all. "Stay sharp, everyone," I said over the comms. "This is where it gets tough." We touched down amidst the chaos of the landing zone, the ground forces disembarking and immediately engaging the enemy. The Garaz were prepared for our assault, their defenses formidable, but we pressed on with unyielding determination. "Captain, we've located the enemy command center," Sergeant Martinez reported, his voice crackling over the comms. "It's heavily fortified, but we can breach it with coordinated charges." "Let's move, people," I ordered, leading my elite team through the chaotic battlefield. "This ends now." We fought our way through the Garaz defenses, our resolve unwavering despite the heavy resistance. The closer we got to the command center, the fiercer the fighting became. But I could see the determination in the eyes of my team, their unwavering loyalty and bravery driving us forward. Finally, we reached the entrance to the command center. The massive doors loomed before us, a final barrier between us and victory. "Set the charges," I commanded, my voice steady despite the chaos around us. "We breach on my mark." The charges were set, and we took cover, waiting for the signal. I took a deep breath, thinking of Tim and the countless others who were depending on us. "Now!" I shouted, and the charges detonated, the doors blowing open with a deafening explosion. We stormed into the command center, our weapons at the ready. The Gorez leadership was there, their expressions a mix of shock and fury. They fought with a ferocity born of desperation, but we were relentless, our determination unyielding. The battle was fierce, but in the end, we emerged victorious. The Gorez leadership was captured, their command center secured. As we stood amidst the wreckage, the weight of our victory began to sink in. "Captain, we've done it," Sergeant Martinez said, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and triumph. "Yes, we have," I replied, my gaze sweeping over the battlefield. "But this is just the beginning. We have to ensure that the Gorez can never threaten humanity again." As I looked out at the horizon, I knew that the fight was far from over. But for now, we had secured a decisive victory, and humanity's future was a little bit brighter. Chapter 5: Victory and Aftermath. Standing on the scorched and ravaged surface of the Gorez homeworld, I couldn't help but be overwhelmed by a cocktail of emotions. Relief, anger, triumph, and a lingering sense of disbelief that we had actually made it this far. Around me, the remnants of the Gorez infrastructure lay in ruins, their once intimidating structures reduced to rubble by the relentless assault of the United Earth Defense Fleet. The air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke and the echoes of our final victory. "Captain, the Gorez leadership is secured," reported Sergeant Ramirez, his face smudged with dirt and sweat but lit up with a triumphant smile. He handed me a data pad with the full list of captured Gorez officials. "Good work, Ramirez," I replied, clapping him on the shoulder. "Let's get this information back to command. We need to make sure every last one of them is held accountable." As we walked through the debris-strewn streets, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was still amiss. The victory, while monumental, felt incomplete. My thoughts were interrupted by a transmission from Earth Command. "Captain O'Reilly, this is Admiral Stevens. We have intercepted some troubling communications. It appears there was a high-ranking human official involved in the initial kidnapping." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. "You're saying someone from our side facilitated this?" My voice was barely more than a growl. "Yes, Captain. We suspect General Harrison. His communications logs show frequent, unauthorized contact with the Gorez." Anger surged through me. General Harrison had been a trusted figure, someone I had looked up to. Betrayal from within was a bitter pill to swallow. "Understood, Admiral. I'll handle it personally." My resolve hardened. I made my way to the command post where Harrison was supposedly stationed. Bursting into the room, I found him standing over a holographic map, seemingly engrossed in strategizing. "Harrison!" I barked, my voice echoing off the metallic walls. He looked up, a flicker of guilt crossing his face before he masked it with a steely gaze. "Captain O'Reilly, to what do I owe this interruption?" His tone was calm, but I could sense the underlying tension. "You know damn well why I'm here," I said, throwing the data pad onto the table. "You've been collaborating with the Gorez. You facilitated the kidnapping of my son and countless others." For a moment, he said nothing. Then, a twisted smile formed on his lips. "You have no idea of the bigger picture, O'Reilly. Sacrifices had to be made for the greater good." "Greater good?" I spat, incredulous. "You betrayed your own species. There's no justification for that." Before he could respond, Earth Command officers entered the room, arresting him on the spot. As he was led away, his eyes met mine one last time, filled with a mixture of contempt and something that almost resembled pity. The news of Harrison's betrayal and subsequent arrest spread quickly. On Earth, and across the colonies, people were both shocked and relieved to see justice served. Celebrations erupted, honoring the bravery and resilience of all those who had fought and sacrificed for our victory. Later, I stood with Tim on a hill overlooking the Gares Command Center, now under human control. He looked up at me, eyes full of admiration and a hint of the trauma he had endured. "Are we really safe now, Dad?" he asked, his voice small. I knelt down, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, Tim. We're safe. And we'll make sure it stays that way." As the sun set on the alien horizon, casting a golden hue over the battlefield, I felt a profound sense of closure. The war had taken a great toll, but we had emerged victorious. Humanity was safe, our colony secure, and my son was back by my side. As we prepared to return to Earth, I knew that this victory would be remembered for generations, and the legacy of our struggle would inspire countless others. Standing there with Tim, I realized that while the battle was over, our work had only just begun. Rebuilding, healing, and ensuring a future free from such threats would be our next challenge. But with the strength and unity we had shown, I had no doubt we would prevail.